Masters of Modern. It is an exciting day. It is previews. Modern Horizons is being released. We're recording this way ahead of time because it is our official preview episode, part 1. That's right. There's a part 2 coming out tomorrow. We got 2 preview cards. I have them both printed out in large size formats, ready to show off. We're going to show off the first one today. And we're just hyped. But these are some sweet cards.
They're really sweet. I mean, Modern Horizons 2, you flash back 7 years to when this show started. At that time, I believe the only modern-centric sort of Masters level set that had been released was the first Modern Masters. That was the very first one. Yeah. And over the next several years, we had tons of Master sets, 2 more of those. Horizons was a very special set, the first one, because obviously we got new cards printed into Modern. It was something we had never seen before, and it turned out to be one of the most fun experiences we'd ever had playing Magic. So much so that we got to actually draft it the other night at your place with a big group of vaccinated people, and it was so fun. It was such a great reminder of how good of a set that is.
Absolutely. And it broke Modern in half. It's crazy that one card that they previewed 4 days ago that we haven't seen yet, that's going to definitely break the format. But then that other card that everyone's really, really excited by, I think it's overhyped, and I don't think it's going to see any play. So those are our official opinions on cards we've never seen. For those who don't know, we are a Modern-centric podcast. We release content on YouTube as well as on any podcast app you may have. And we've been doing this for a long time. We're really excited. If you are joining us for the first time, please like and follow and subscribe. We come out with a new episode every week. We also do Commander streams on Monday on Twitch and a bunch of other fun stuff. And we appreciate you stopping by to check out these brand new spicy cards. And I think let's show off the first one. So for those who don't know, we have a second preview coming out tomorrow. So if you want to see that preview first off, you want to be one of the first people to see it, like and subscribe, because you're going to see it next week, or not next week, tomorrow. So today is May 31st in the future, and tomorrow will be June 1st, because that's how calendars work. And first preview comes out May 31st, and tomorrow at 9 a.m. June 1st, the second preview will come out. But the first preview, I'm gonna read some things off to you. And hopefully this will hype you up a little bit. So the first thing, it is a creature.
Okay, I like creatures.
It's a 3/2. It's a 3/2.
Does it cost 2 or less? Is what I want to know, Alex.
In fact, it does, Ben. It costs.
We're winning.
Not only does it cost 2, it is 2 colored mana. So it's black. So it's a little harder to cast. Okay. But it is black, a 2 mana 3/2. It is a rogue, another card type that I know you're a fan of.
I love rogues.
Yep, you love rogues. The other creature type is a Dauthi or a Dauthi or whatever anyone's pronouncing it. I'm assuming there's a guide out to explain everyone a creature type.
Are you saying Dauthi like Dauthi, Dauthi?
Yes,
is that the Tempest famous creature type?
So speaking of which, it does have Shadow. It does have the ability Shadow. I know it's really cool how they brought Shadow back alongside possibly Horsemanship. I'm going to be really flying Horsemanship and Shadow all in the same set. That's wild. If Horsemanship isn't in the set, we assumed, because I think it's the only one with 15 letters for tomorrow's preview.
A 2 mana 3, so a 2 mana 3/2 Dauthi Rogue for black is already like a pretty strong. Like, I already like that because of its creature types.
Yeah, this is an unblockable 3/2. This is a Shadow 3/2 for 2, which is kind of on its own. If this card was printed, maybe just a playable card, especially in any type of deck that cares about mono black devotion, or a rogues deck. Like it has a relevant creature type and a relevant kind of mana cost, and it is a really efficient evasive threat. But it has more abilities. But wait, there's more.
There's more.
So it is called Dauthi. I'm gonna hate this word forever. How do you say it, Ben?
I can't see it. All I can see is a black card.
No, but the creature type.
Oh, Dauthi.
Dauthi. Okay, so it is Dauthi Voidwalker. Just gonna bring this up to show you what you can see so far.
It's a rare. Okay, so we got ourselves a rare Dauthi Rogue.
Yep. All right. So after Shadow, first ability, and this is another big relevant one. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. So.
Okay, so any card goes into their graveyard from anywhere, you get to exile it with a void counter?
Correct. So Rest in Peace, void counter. Also works with like a Helm of Awakening, I think, for Legacy decks, but in Modern, exiles graveyards. And then last but not least, you can tap it to sacrifice the Voidwalker, to end. Choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost.
You just get to play any card that's in their graveyard if you sacrifice Dauthi Voidwalker?
So it has to be a card that exiled with Dauthi. So once this is in play, any card that would go into their graveyard gets exiled with a void counter. And then later you can tap it. I love having big cards. You can tap it to cast that card for free. Yes. So if you play this with the rogue, the 1-drop that like mills them when you play it, and you happen to like have this in play and then mill Karn against like a Tron player, you can just play Karn for free on your next turn by tapping this and sacrificing him. So 2 mana Karns. Other obviously cool plays, like anything you get with them against Dredge, it's just like a really, really good hate card, right? It's a main deckable hate card against them. You get a lot of value from it. At this point, I believe Marshall will have put it up on frame because I think I'm being inverted. Though hopefully, yeah, editor can maybe switch us so I'm not inverted, since we're holding up actual props that people need to be able to read. But this card seems extremely powerful. Hopefully it's right here and it's good art glory.
Okay, now one thing that's extremely cool about this, I just want to point out something that I've noticed. Emrakul states that when it is placed into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, it reshuffles. If a card would be placed into an opponent's graveyard, it exiles, which means that Emrakul's reshuffle never happens. Emrakul gets exiled, and this could cast Emrakul from your opponent's graveyard by tapping and sacrifice.
You do have to play against the rare opponent who's playing Emrakul.
I'm just saying this is like a rare example of where Emrakul going to the graveyard results in you getting something sweet.
That is true. I'm probably more excited to cast my opponent's Primeval Titans.
Yeah.
If we're talking about like what are the coolest cards that are common cards that are seeing play in Modern that you can get by milling your opponent with this in play, it's
Primeval Titan's a huge one. There's some good planeswalkers. Like
all the planeswalkers.
5 mana Teferi is really good. You can end up getting Ugin Karn. Yeah, you can end up getting some of those modern decks that do the all-in Platinum Empyrean decks now. You can grab Platinum Empyrean, so that's like an 8/8 that comes out pretty frequently.
I think you just beat those decks if you mill a Platinum Empyrean anyways. Like it's the only, like the way they cheated out in the play, they like lose if you mill that card. But yeah, so like extremely powerful. And that's just its like backup plan, right? Like it's up front, you're getting this like really low costed, efficient hate bear beater that then like can do an insane play late game if it becomes ever irrelevant. And like, yeah, I think this card's really cool. I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. I'll be mentioning mono black devotion decks. The fact that it's double black, that's like always mono black devotion's weakness, right? Is that 2-drop slot, because most black 2-drops aren't very good. And this might be the best ever printed. I'm like trying to think of another black card that's this efficient.
This makes Nantuko Shade look like a bit of a joke, I have to be honest.
That is true. It also, like, as you mentioned, the Rogues deck, I mean, that's been very, very popular in Historic. This could give it like this, and if there are some other Rogues, which I think in Maro's thing there were previews, or damn, that Rogue that they previewed 4 days ago, crazy. Those definitely have the potential of making a Rogues deck in Modern possible, between the support that they got from M21, the support they got from Zendikar Rising, and probably the support they're going to be getting from the Magic Forgotten Realms set, right? The next set takes place in a D&D world famous for rogues being one of the like main creature or like jobs you can have in a D&D world. It's like rogues, warrior, that's why they were the 4 party members on Zendikar. So I think like there's going to be a lot of support for that tribe. I also think this card's just playable on its own. I mean, the double black makes it harder for other decks that are more established, but in Jund, like as a sideboard card, just playing 2 of these and being able to bring one in against dredge decks and just have a good like creature, or like any hate bears deck, this like really wrecks graveyard decks. I don't know how you beat I know how you beat this as a dredge. You have to kill it, right? But otherwise, like you can't block it very easily. It eats your graveyard. It casts spells for free if you do want to try and get rid of it.
I think it's got a number of things that really stand out to me that are very, very interesting. The first one, obviously, that you mentioned is that this is just an efficient creature. And anybody who's ever played with Shadow knows, if you're trying to go after something that's got a higher number of power than its casting cost, and it's evasive, you generally don't care if it can block. It doesn't matter to you usually. If you're 3-2, if you're 4-3 for 3, whatever it is, like you just don't care if it can block. The whole
Sure.
point of having an evasive thing that has a higher ratio of power to its casting cost is that it's trying to kill them. So that's great. The thing about casting a spell that was exiled with this card is great, except that it's actually just better, as you mentioned, to be more of a Thalia clone or something that just on turn 2 makes their game plan a lot harder. Like we've even just seen like Dryad Militant be a strong card in like limited and certain sideboard environments. This just puts that card to shame, because it's literally any card from
Right.
anywhere,
Right.
not just instants and sorceries, right? And on top of all this, the blue black mill deck is a deck over the last couple of years that has actually popped up in 5-0 tournaments. Like you can win with that deck.
Mm-hmm.
The blue black mill deck is a real deck. So if I play game 1 with the blue black mill deck and I have 4 of these in my sideboard, and in game 2, when my opponent has sided all of their removal out, and I just side these in, number one, it gives me a plan B, right? One of these just wins the game in 7 turns,
Sure.
which is fine anyway. But on top of the fact that if I play this on turn 2, and I even just glimpse the unthinkable you on turn 3, like if that's what I do, or I archive trap you, and you're playing a deck that even has like one good permanent, what if I just get your 5 mana Teferi for my 3/2? That's so good.
Yeah.
That's going to make my mill deck so much better against you to have card advantage built in like that.
I mean, like even this puts me into a mind that if I'm playing a mono black devotion, I like almost make my deck a blue black devotion list, but all of the blue cards are like the cantrip that mills your opponent 2 cards, or like things that mill my opponent a little bit and me get value off of it, like a weird rogues devotion list. The one card I'm also I mentioned it earlier, but Thieves Guild Enforcer. Black 1/1 flash. Whenever Thieves Guild Enforcer or another rogue enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in your graveyard, Thieves Guild Enforcer is +2/+1 and has Death Touch. But the fact that this like is a rogue, so you get advantage of tribal synergies in a mono black, like a mono black devotion rogues deck, is basically what I'm explaining. And it enters the battlefield and mills your opponent's 2. And any rogue, so you can play this for 1, it'll mill them 2. You can then play the Voidwalker, it'll come into play, it'll mill them for an additional 2. Those 2 get void counters, and then from that point on, every rogue you play will build on what cards you can eventually cast for free. And you mentioned not being able to block with Shadow, but something that's interesting about this is as long as you exile a creature, you can just leave this back as a blocker, because it can do it at instant speed. You get whatever you're casting off of this at speed. There's no sorcery stipulation. Yeah, I keep reading it to make sure that's true. But yeah, no, you just get to cast it for free. So like this card's super, super sweet. I'm like super excited to see this play. Now, outside of just Modern, well, I guess Jund is the last place, or Jund and Grixis Death Shadow kind of decks places. And I think both of those, this card's also really good. There's ways to modify Grixis Death Shadow to be able to take advantage of mill, but the big one is this also works with Thoughtseize. It's from anywhere. So the fact that I can have this in play and then turn 3 Thoughtseize them, get their best card, and then play it that turn, like regardless of attacking. Or like this in the Liliana.
That's the piece of the text that really stands out to me, right? Because unless you're dealing with incremental mill, which is totally good, like all the stuff you're talking about with rogues, if you're talking about like milling off of a Hedron Crab or a Ruin Crab off of like fetch lands and stuff like that type of incidental mill is great. But the heaviest mill things that you can do are when you're just paying like a certain amount of mana to mill their deck, and those things cost mana. So if you do that, if you have this in play, and let's say I do glimpse you. Let's say on turn 3, I glimpse you, right? And I mill 10 for 2. I won't have any mana to cast the thing.
No, it's for free.
I don't need any mana. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay,
I won't need any mana. So the fact that you can both mill them for mana that turn and also cast the spell without having to have additional mana available is what makes it such a cool extra piece of text.
But I think honestly, more than that, the discard plan is the real thing, right? Like the fact that you can Thoughtseize and choose which card goes into their graveyard, because it's from anywhere. So it's not even, you don't even have to mill. Who cares about milling? Or if you kill their creature, or their creature dies, or they fetch land, right? Like you can get a fetch land off of this. It's play, it's not cast. So say you play this on turn 2 and your hand's filled with 4 drops and your opponent is just getting ahead, but they fetch, you can use the Dauthi to get to, you ramp to 3 mana. Or if you have a 5 drop and you don't really need this in play anymore, they're a deck that the 3/2, like they're a deck that this won't do anything against them for whatever reason, you're able to ramp off of it. But I think the Thoughtseize game is the big one. It's just being able to, and makes it like honestly really playable in Jund, being able to get your opponent's best card in their hand and cast it for free on the same turn, on turn 3, like, is such a big game and so backbreaking for people. And then if you don't get their discard, you have a unblock, you have like 3/2 worth of damage every turn that also hates out half the format, because any deck that wants to interact with the graveyard loses. This card's super powerful. I'm super hyped. I think this is like not like, I think it's on the top end of cards we've gotten to preview on this podcast. Like, I think it's like top 4.
When we previewed Ghostly Pilferer, it was a card that we really liked and we thought was really cool and I think had a lot of potential, but we both kind of knew that it was cuter than it was powerful. And it's a really fun card, and I've played Ghostly Pilferer to like great effect, but it doesn't stand out as like, this card is busted. This card has the potential to be busted. Like, this card has real potential to push heavy black decks into, I shut down your whole strategy by my aggressive 3/2 creature existing. Like, I just play this on turn 2, and if you are trying to do something cute and don't have a way to deal with this, you just lost. I just got rid of your whole game plan. Like, there's a lot of decks in Modern, 50% of them, I would say, where this just stops what they're doing.
50%'s a lot. I don't think 50% of the decks in Modern are like graveyard focused decks. Like, right, like the big deck you're fending this against that like probably is maybe fine with this is Heliod Company, but even then, that's when you're thought seizing them out of the opponent. That's when your removal spells are removing their threats and you're able to get them with it. But yeah, there's definitely real decks in the format that you're able to stop, and this is a really good answer to them. Now I do want to kind of talk about other formats outside of necessarily Modern. Before I do that, I do want to say that the card that we got, there's also a full art version, like the extended frame version. We previewed that today, this morning, also on TikTok, on my TikTok at Kess Wiley on TikTok. Check that out. You'll be able to see kind of the full art. It's exclusive to there. This is where we're previewing the regular card and doing a whole breakdown. There's like a 60-second thing, kind of just freaking out about how cool the card is. But definitely check that out if you want to see the full art. That's the exclusive place that's going to be. And then obviously here for the regular card. Now, Commander is the other place I wanted to talk about. That's also the format where the threats are bigger. You were talking about Emrakul before, but if you want to talk about a format that you can get a big threat off of someone, this card gets it for them. Graveyard interaction matters significantly more, right? Almost every deck is built in some way to abuse the graveyard, and not to mention like CDH levels of competitive play, where this, like, I think this is a CDH staple. Like the fact that like shuts down Breach, that this shuts down through the Breach decks. This shuts down like anything that's trying to recurse stuff from the graveyard, and you get to cast like in ad nauseam if you mill it, or if they cast it like. And I forget when things go to the resolve moment, but yeah, I think this card's really good. Also, it triggers Tinma in the CDH role, but the regular Commander, like just exiling people's graveyards, is really powerful.
Yeah, I mean this is just extremely good. Also, like, in blue-black decks that play counterspells, having this in play, countering something really meaningful, it going to their graveyard, and then being able to cast the thing you just countered with your creature that's been sitting in play at instant speed seems very good, right? Like, people play gigantic spells. People play huge spells in EDH all the time. So yeah, I think in EDH, in CDH for sure. This is also the type of card that in a format like Highlander Gauntlet and like 100 card, any type of singleton Canlander, stuff.
Like
this is going to stand out. Like, I'll play this in my wheel right away.
And then I think this is Legacy and Vintage. Like the fact that this is like such a strong answer to Dredge, and the older the format you get into, the more prevalent Dredge becomes. Is like on its own a reason to be playing it. It's 2 mana. It's a threat. It does all the things you want to do in those formats, and then it has like weird card advantage moments where you can just get people. I think this is like a multi-format staple. I'm really excited by this. I think this is I think the card Dauthi Rogue. Maybe there's a few of them, but it was in Market Rosewater's like preview thing. I think this is the preview version of it. So I'm hyped. There's a reason that this card I think was a focus for people, and I think just like the big downside of it not being able to block or it being black is super solvable in most formats, and it's so powerful that make it worth it to kind of lean into that.
For new cards, is it just this and Push are the only two that are really competing for the top level of power of what we previewed? I feel like it's probably this and Push, right? Because I feel like Push at the time
outside of reprints.
The format. Out of reprints, yeah. But if for new cards, though, I feel like Push moved the format forward majorly in like a huge way. Not as good now as it was then. It's just like a little bit less, of a solid card.
I think Fatal Push is still like a top 3 premier. It's still one of the most played cards in the format. I think that like in all of Magic, outside of just Modern, I do think Kess does get a lift up. I think in Modern it hasn't seen any real significant play, but it is like one of the top 10 commanders in Commander. So I think there it does see play, and it did see some Legacy play. I think like Fatal Push, I think Fatal Push by far wide. Like even this card, I don't think is going to be as good as Fatal Push ever was. Blossoming Defense has seen a lot of play.
Yeah. I wish that the Merfolk had seen more play.
Yeah, like Claim Fame hasn't seen as much play as like Claim Fame has seen play though. It's not like Claim Fame hasn't seen play. Actually, Claim Fame has actually seen more play in Historic than it has seen in Modern.
Claim Fame.
So it has seen a lot of play there. Now that it's been added to that format. Yeah, no, I think this is one of the most powerful cards we've gone into preview. I'm excited to see it in every format. I think this is like easy, a good pickup to like if you want to be playing these formats for a long time, and could be a really expensive card. So we're really hyped. This card's super powerful. Like the more I read it and the more I think of use cases, the more my brain like continues to like love it. Even like Death and Taxes decks, like we didn't even talk about those. The fact that this exiles cards that then you can get with your processors, and also is a hate bear, so it hates on decks that normally are a bad matchup for those decks. Like the problem here is that the mana cost is a little bit harder to cast, but those decks can can move around playing double black, especially because double black's one of the easiest cards. Like eventually you just play Urborg, right? Like eventually, worst case scenario, you're like, you know what? I need to hit Thoughtseize. I need to hit this. I need to hit Liliana the Veil. 1, 2, 3. Okay, but then I want to play Bloodbraid Elf, or I want to play a double red card or whatever. Just play Urborg as a 1 of in your deck or a 2 of in your deck, and like move on with your life. Like you could almost make mono black Jund between this, Bob, Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Liliana the Veil, like a mono black control deck. There's now enough pieces there that like you can get really far not having Tarmogoyf and Lightning Bolt. And
Ren card is really good. A card is really good that I think doesn't play perfectly with this card, but I think the power level of it is high. Is the 3 mana X3 lifelink Death Touch Flying Rogue from the last Zendikar set.
It's Tarmogoyf. Yeah, it's every card type in your graveyard. Or it's your opponent's graveyard. Yes, it is your opponent's graveyard.
Right? So it doesn't play perfectly with this card, obviously, because it exiles stuff from their graveyard, but like you're not going to have this card to play all the time. And I just think in a format like Modern with Liliana and with Hand Disruption, you're going to fill their graveyard. They're going to crack fetch lands. Like that card is just a very strong, efficiently costed, heavy black finisher. It'll end the game.
That is an interesting dichotomy with this card, is that the main rogues, or not, the main rogue mechanic is getting 8 cards in your opponent's graveyard so that they turn on, and this prevents that from happening. Now, one thing that is cool about this card is it doesn't rest in peace, right? It doesn't ETB exile their graveyard. It's any card once this is in play that enters their graveyard, it removes, which does give dredge turn 1 and turn 2 on the player, turn 1 on the draw to kind of get going, which is good because like on the play that means something, on the draw it doesn't. But it does mean like Thieves Guild Enforcer never becomes a 3/2 Death Touch for 1. It's always just going to be a 1/1 that milled them. But you can also just sacrifice it once you get a card you want, and then their graveyard is back for you to be able to use for decks that it doesn't matter. So I think, it's super versatile. It definitely needs to figure out where it wants to work. And there's just like other good rogues in Modern that I'm sure we're figuring or not talking about that this is going to work with. I think like this card's so versatile, and like on its face value, just eating graveyards in this way almost makes it like unban some of the graveyard cards. This is so strong. I'm like those graveyard decks are gonna need help. Like Deathrite Shaman levels of just like main deckable graveyard hate, kind of.
It's also not a 3/1, which they could have so easily done. They could have made this a 3/1 quite easily, and you would have had things.
Ren and 6.
You would have had cards like Ren and 6, Lavadar. You would have had cards that people play in various decks that would take this out. Versus it having 2 toughness is actually significant. Like it does actually make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this card's the real deal. I'm super hyped. So just kind of that's it for today's part 1. There will be a part 2 tomorrow for podcast listeners. All of this is coming out once on Tuesday, so you'll get this whole breakdown in audio format as well as the second half. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you, Wizards, for the preview. It's we're super appreciative. We're super excited about the second one for tomorrow as well. So make sure to like and subscribe if you do it. I want to hear what decks you think this card's going to work best in below, and what you're most excited to play it in. Also, we want to make sure check out our Monday night streams. We do Commander every Monday night on twitch.tv/KesWiley. We're starting it back up next week. We took the last 2 weeks off, but we'll be playing a bunch of games. We also have a bunch of new emotes on there by Inkling Custom, so that's super, super awesome. We're super excited by that. And we also have a new TCG player affiliate link below. There's a link to it if you are buying Magic cards or you're buying any other TCG player is a great place to get them. That's where I buy them. And if you use the code TheMMCast when you're checking out, it helps us. It doesn't cost you anything else, but we get benefited a little bit, and which always makes this podcast happen and move forward. So thank you all so much, and we'll literally see you tomorrow with our next preview card. We're super hyped. That one's also a banger, and we'll get talking about that in a second for people listening in audio format, or tomorrow for people watching us on video.
Bye.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.